traveler.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Born to be Wild, a Wild exclusive Hearthstone podcast where we like to have fun discussing the Wild format of Hearthstone and showcasing members of the Wild community. I'm your host, Nate Wolf, and running the show for the first time without Craig. So this is a little bit of a new experience for me and a little bit sad, but I'm happy to have some good friends here. Before we kick off the show, I did want to say over the past week, we have seen many examples of sexual harassment and sexual assault coming to light, and a lot of brave people sharing their stories. I do think it's a very important issue, and as Sunglitter said, you can't be silent without being part of the problem. And so with that being said, we are going to discuss it a little bit on this week's show in a little bit. Before we get there, I wanted to introduce my good friend Blutrane, guest hosting the show today. So welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest host tonight. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, and welcome to the show. So, just for those folks who are listening or watching who may not be familiar with you, could you just maybe give a little brief overview of who you are and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So my name's Blutrane. Not my real name, of course. I am also Canadian, although I am no replacement for Craig of Canada. We're actually almost neighbors. I live a couple hours north of you in the Pacific Northwest, where I've resided for the last 10 years, and I play Wild Hearthstone. Interestingly enough, my love affair with Wild Hearthstone largely stems from this podcast and your previous one as well. I've always dabbled in the format, but it was kind of my gateway into the community, which I've become quite enamored with. And that's it. In terms of accomplishments, not many to speak of. I would qualify myself as a middling player at best. Ladder changes have been kind to me. I've been regularly hitting Legend within the first few days of ladder resets since April. And playing a variety of decks, meta, off meta, whatever catches my eye and holds my interest. I tend to be a little bit of a butterfly in terms of decks. I don't like to stick to one thing. I like to experiment with different ideas and archetypes. And actually, that's how I met today's guest, just through that journey of trying to find what's new and what to play.
That is a beautiful segue. So, our special guest for today's show, 3E Anura, welcome to the show.
Hello. It's very happy to be here. Really excited about it.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on. So, I don't know, Blue, can you maybe give us a little intro, or how did you meet 3E?
So, I met 3E because Neon, who is famous for retweeting interesting and high legend finished place decks, retweeted a deck that 3E successfully piloted, and that is Odd Shaman. We'll get more to that later. For those who know me, they'll know that I am a huge fan of the Shaman class. I like Shaman archetypes that are a little bit off meta, Quest Shaman, Aggro Shaman. Not so much big. I do dabble in even when it's well positioned in the meta, and I just love the deck so much that I felt compelled to reach out to 3E, and I guess the rest, as we say, is history.
Yeah, I was certainly really glad you did. It was, I was just had a lot of fun experimenting with it, and just to get some real interest in that was really nice. And just when you kind of picked my brain one night and we did a little co-op, that was really great.
That's super cool. It's always it feels like such a status symbol to get retweeted by Neon.
Yeah, I definitely was doing a couple whoop whoops there when that happened.
So do you mind if you just for those of us watching or listening who aren't as familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started playing the game, why you like Wild, and that sort of thing?
Certainly, certainly. So I guess I've been playing Hearthstone since 2014 or so, which
Wow.
was
Did you
my
did you mean jump in like right away?
Not quite. So it was my senior year of high school. My good friend introduced me to the game, and this was right after he had introduced me to Magic the Gathering. And I was a bit more interested in Magic at the time, so Hearthstone was kind of like a back burner thing for me for a while. But about a year later, I really started getting a lot more into it, and the first deck that like I really, and this was before they had like formats. I think right when I started was when Nox Ramus was coming out. So I remember people saying Nax out. um,
Oh, people will continue to say Nax out for a long, long time.
every time an expansion comes out. But I had the first deck that I crafted and really built was a mid-range shaman. And I don't know, something about like just the kind of like board focused play and a little bit of like randomness mixed in with the totems just really resonated with me. And I don't know, I've kind of stuck with shaman and mid-rangey strategies ever since. I certainly I would say I probably lean towards more aggressive strategies, which this Odd Shaman deck certainly is. But yeah, I guess as far as why I started playing Wild, with playing Magic, I kind of got an introduction into formats that way. Like there's I don't know, they have like a standard and modern, which is kind of like an eternal format, and legacy, which I guess would be like their version of Wild. And I was kind of more interested in the like eternal, everlasting formats and Magic already. So when Hearthstone announced the formats, the Wild introduction, I was kind of like planning on being a Wild main when a lot of people were like, "Oh, I'm just gonna dust all the standard cards."
That made me cry. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my good friends dusted a lot of his standard or all of his cards that like weren't standard, and I was like, oh, God, I can't condone that. But yeah, I guess that's about it. I'm mostly shaman player, but rogue would be my like second favorite class. I kind of again like sort of tempo strategies. So.
Yeah, super cool. One of the questions that I typically like to ask the guests that we have on, just out of curiosity, how did you come up with your name? Like, what does 3E mean? What does 3E Anura?
So I guess 3E Anura might, the first part, 3E, I got it from my name, Joe. When I signed my name, it looks like 3E, the way that I do my signature. So that's where that part came from. And then Anura is the Order of Frogs, the Latin name for the Order of Frogs. I just like frogs a lot. So I guess you could quite literally translate it to Joe Frog.
I love it. I love it. Oh my God. That was like my follow-up. Okay. Cause I was watching your, I was looking at your Twitter, I was watching your YouTube videos, and there's frogs everywhere, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But I was going to ask you, what is it? What is it about the frogs?
I guess I would just have to say I've had a sort of fascination for like reptiles and amphibians since I was a really little kid. I still have a pet snake, and I don't know. I've had like lots of fond memories of like going out and searching for frogs, like when I was younger, and I still do that now when it's like a rainy night in the summer.
Oh, that's awesome. We should have put Kragwa as the background. Missed opportunity there. Yeah.
I think Morgul's like close enough to a frog, right? He's amphibious. The Murlocs, I would say, are pretty close. and relation.
Do have good memories of camping and catching frogs. And we were in Hawaii one time for a trip and found this frog that was, it was like, I don't know if, I mean, it was huge, just like the size of my face. Like it was this big fatty that someone had squashed and it was so huge. Like a big old frog pancake. It was so great. They're just so mellow. You could pick them up and they pee in your hand and then you let them go. I mean, but anyways,
does not sound appealing to me whatsoever.
Over there, like, how are those memories fond?
Yeah.
So I take it you like the set Rastikon's Rumble then?
I was a fan of that. I mean, Spirit of the Frog is an excellent card. I think it was a really cool way to give Shaman some card draw. I am sad that couldn't be a card that I put into Odd Shaman, since it needs, alternating mana costs, or one at each spot on the curve.
I mean, I think that's part of the beauty of Wild is that over the years the card pool just gets bigger and bigger, and so cards that have never see play traditionally, maybe we'll see play a year from now or whatever it is. I'm still waiting for Free Shaman to be a thing. We're still not there, but we get a little bit closer.
Every now and then they give it some love, but it hasn't ever been enough yet.
I do feel like a little bit that Shaman has had somewhat of an identity crisis. I mean, even Shaman has been a thing since, Witchwood, but aside from that, like, I don't know, Shaman tends to get very strong to where it gets polarized, at least in standard, and then they nerf it to oblivion, and and here we are. So it tends to be either too strong or in a bad spot. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday when standard mid-range Shaman was like the thing before all the nerfs happened, and I think that's how I got Golden Shaman back in the day. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have any thoughts on the state of Shaman as a Shaman main?
I would say that, I guess if I tried to describe Shaman's like identity, probably the best way I would put it is playing into high rolls. Like, I don't know, I guess it kind of like started with the totems that, it's like a random chance thing, and then they sort of built off of it with like lightning storm, random effects, crackle, now like all the evolve stuff that they've put in. That kind of is like one aspect to it, and then I guess the other aspect has always sort of felt to me like it really likes to play in bursts, if you will. Like, you sort of swarm the board all of a sudden and like push, like, or just try and make a really threatening board out of nowhere, make some huge push all of a sudden, like either through a lot of burn spells, through Bloodlust, through, Galakron, and stuff like that, which I don't know if that makes sense, seems about right, but
It does. So self-professed Shaman main also, the class suffers from three problems. One, its hero power. By far the worst hero power in the game because of its randomness, which is why the odd deck is so intriguing, because it eliminates that as a disadvantage. Second problem is it has probably now, since the Priest rework, the weakest core set of cards in Classic and Basic, which means that you see these swings like you do when mid-range or Galakron becomes a thing. And finally, Overload as a mechanic is just, it kind of is like Warlock, where you're basically sacrificing or taking on a disadvantage to get a really big disadvantage. But instead of using life as a resource, it uses your mana crystals. You're kind of mortgaging your next turn. And so in order to take on Overload, the advantage has to be backbreaking for you to actually embrace it and get value out of it. The best example of this is the card Ancestral Knowledge. 2 mana, draw 2, Overload 2. 2 cards for 2 mana is well, it's pretty good. People run Arcane Intellect, which is 3 mana for 2 cards, in a class that really needs card draw. Yet it doesn't see play because the overload is so backbreaking that it just negates the advantage. So when you compound all those things and the randomness that 3E talked about, it really puts the class in a bad spot. And I think this is why I suspect that we're going to likely see a priest-like rework for Shaman this year, between now and the third expansion. My bold prediction, but I think that that's something that needs to happen, lest we keep seeing Shaman be either a joke or out of control.
That's pretty well said, I would say.
I do. I'm a big fan of the 4-mana 7/7.
So that is, well, I mean, think about that, right? Now it seems tame by comparison, and the dragon, which is a 5/7 with the spell damage, I mean, that's the power level that you have to push to run Overload or Totem Golem. You need things that are so broken to consider an overload, and it's a really cool idea, and I really like the idea of get the power now, pay the price later. But because most Hearthstone games are over by turns 7 or 8, particularly, Shaman tends to veer on the more aggressive side, at least its viable decks do. You just can't take that on. And Control Shaman, I think they have a really cool win condition with Shutterwalk, but they lack the tools to get to that win condition because their card draw is so conditional, as are their board clears, etc., that it's really hard to, make Shutterwalk Reno Shaman as good as, say, Reno Priest or Reno Mage, which just has a little bit more of an edge of kind of staying in there and controlling the game. But I have hopes that we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, and I think also Shaman, I think this was a couple years back. Blizzard was talking about class identities and trying to rework them a little bit. And I think, I've been playing since, I don't know, right? I've been basically since Naxxramas as well. But I think one of my favorite sets was the Knights of the Frozen Throne when all the Death Knights came out. They all had these unique things, and Shamans, of course, was Evolve. And Hearthstone as a game is very, I don't know how to say, but there's so much RNG involved. To some extent, we see these casino mages and that sort of thing, and Evolve Shaman is sort of like that. I've been playing in the Wild Team Hearth Legends kind of series. We just wrapped up. But anyways, I was playing Mad at Arms one time, and he brought this Evolve Shaman. I'll have to share the list with you guys later. But it was crazy, and there's so I don't know how competitive it is per se, but you can get some crazy swing turns out of nowhere. And even if you fill your board with a bunch of crap, you can bloodlust it. And I don't know. I mean, or it's fun to play like the little bunnies and then evolve them and see what kind of nonsense you get. It's just a lot of fun. So anyways, yeah. So how's your guys' week been in Hearthstone? I think all three of us hit Legend fairly early. And so I've been a little non-motivated to play, a little bit scared of tanking my MMR. I mean, typically I would hit, I hit Legend for the first time a couple of years ago, but for the most part was just hitting rank 5 each month, just because the reward for hitting Legend was so similar to the rank 5 cap that it just didn't seem worth it to me. But after the changes, it's like, oh yeah, let's do it. Anyways, but now you get, you hit Legend, you're guaranteed 10-star bonus. But if you've got this awesome win rate, you get the 11. And I'm now all paranoid that I'm going to tank my MMR here.
So we had we wanted to dedicate a section of our conversation to talk about the ladder, and maybe we can front load it since it's so opportune. So I think that for me, my week has been really characterized by my personal struggles with the new ladder system. Now, to be clear, I like the new ladder system. I've personally benefited from it insofar as that I've had legend finishes, which with the old system I never did. But first month hit legend, got 10 stars. Second month hit legend again, got 11 stars. Now, why did I hit 11 stars the second month and not the first? No one really knows how the system works. And the graphic on the screen sums up my experience so perfectly. I don't care if I finish rank 1 or rank 3000. I want those 11 stars.
Right?
And I don't know what the criteria is to get them. So I think I finished in April somewhere in the 300s and in May somewhere in the 200s. I got 11 stars, and so everyone says, well, the cutoff's 200 or 250. But Shio and Essa finished, I think, like 400, almost 500 last month and still hit 11 stars. Mentalistic on some random server didn't even make legend, got 11 stars. So yes, it's MMR based. I get that. But I'd like a little bit of transparency into what that means so I can understand what I need to do to get that 11 star bonus. Like, it's not clear, and the lack of transparency and the lack of understanding and consistency is frankly driving me crazy. So that's been my week, just dealing with that uncertainty of where I'm going to end up and not knowing what I need to do to actually hit that goal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to contribute to that because you basically said how I feel as well. I mean, I don't know. I've hit legend the last 3 months in a row during the first week of the month and still managed to hit 10 stars every time. And what also doesn't make sense is, and it's driving me a little bit batty, is that I'll hit week 1, come in around 300, and then kind of meme out. I'll play some standard. I'll play some other video game, and my rank will kind of decay a little bit. And then I'll see these posts on Twitter where someone hit legend after me, coming in way below me. Like someone will hit, rank 200 legend 2 weeks after me, like as they're, from rank Diamond 1 into legend and come in super low. And it's like, how in the world does that happen? I just don't understand. I don't know. There's a lot of mystery there, and I just don't, not quite sure what to make of it.
And saying it's MMR isn't good enough. I mean, yes, it's MMR, but what is the calculus that goes into it? A great example is we have a few, notable players this past week that have made free-to-play accounts, put together a Demon Hunter deck, and took it right to Legend. So Zeddy and of course my good friend Ghosty Dog both did this. I don't remember what Zeddy came in at, but it was pretty good. It wasn't an outrageous score. I mean, it was pretty high considering he went straight to Legend.
Well,
Ghosty hit rank 1.
Do you see Zeddy went 49-0? That's like unheard of. I think he broke Dog's record. Like, that's insane. I mean, now I get it, and I think he had posted that, and Craig, gotta love him, responded to that like, Dog went 50-0. So I guess he didn't break Dog's record, but I gotta love Craig. Zeddy posts basically, hey, I went 49-0 on a free-to-play account with Odd Demon Hunter, and Craig responds, well, yeah, but you went from bronze to platinum, like anybody could do that. It's such a mean response, but at the same time, at the same time, I get it. But this is interesting. Like, so, and Ghosty Dog is in the chat. I love it. Welcome aboard.
Hey, Ghosty.
So we're talking about you. But to see this hit legend on the 25th of the month and come in at rank 1.
Yeah.
It's just, my mind totally exploded.
So my reaction to this is not like, he hit rank 1 legend on the 25th. Boo.
No, it's incredible.
Why?
I just can't.
What why is that the case, I think, is the question. And I think it's really important to note that, someone in the chat said Ghosty is like the silent greatest of all time. And this is someone that hits 6 legends a month on a given month. Asia, EU, NA, Legend, and Wild. I mean, obviously a very skilled and fantastic player. So I would
Absolutely.
expect him to take a high rank from a free-to-play account. But like, why? Zeddy's also very talented. Like, why is it rank 1 for Ghosty and closer to 100 for Zeddy? I don't remember the exact rank. Now, granted, one was on NA and one was on Asia, so you'll always get the Snyder marks that like, oh well, they're terrible on Asia or they're terrible elsewhere. But I think Jack Harris quite insightfully said that generally the skill level across all servers are relatively the same. Is it number of players? Like, what is it? So my ask, if you're watching Blizzard, and of course you are because this is the biggest wild Hearthstone podcast, just tell us how the system works. You've been really making an effort to be more transparent. I think we all applaud that. How does the MMR system work? I'm not complaining about it. I just want more information because the previous picture kind of sums it up. Not knowing means that it gives me anxiety. And when I have anxiety, I play other games.
It's kind of interesting because like there's a little parallel where in Battlegrounds, it's like the MMR is just right there. At least that's kind of my understanding. And so I don't think it would be all that. I mean, it would be weird if they just straight up had the MMR like there for you to see. But I don't know. I mean, that might not be totally out of the question. And if that's something we see in the future, I think that'd be kind of cool.
In my frustration, it's not even so much frustration, but right now I think I'm about at 900. I entered Legend at like 80 something, and really, as it stands right now, based on the best information that we have, it's about 70% win rate to effectively climb or maintain a high rank. And it's not like that in standard, by the way. It is like that in wild. So, you have to have like a 70 to 80% win rate to climb out of the dumpster, right? Or low legend ranks. And that seems pretty tough. Again, I'm going to quote Jack here. He explained this on his stream that, well, it's because the quality of players in Wild tend to be worse, so the resistance to the high MMR players or the discrepancy is greater. That makes sense.
That's
and
mean,
in fairness,
Jack.
well, in deference to Jack, I don't think I should get hot takes from a streamer that I respect when the company itself can basically say, look, this is how the system works and then explain it. So I think that for me, what I like about the ladder system is I like the easy climb to legend. I just like a little bit more insight into how it works because I think that will, I don't want to say silence the criticism, but I think it will just remove some of the mystery, which doesn't really add much value to the experience.
Yeah, I certainly have. I don't know. I found it like kind of just a little confusing as far as just how the rank goes up and down. But I guess for me, like you were saying how it's like a lot of times you need like a 70 or 80% win rate to really climb and maintain like a high legend rank. But I would say that's more of only true. I mean, when you're playing against, if you've already like fallen back a bit, and the majority of players that you're up against are like the diamond, 5+ players. As like, since I've been, I don't know, experimenting with Rogue a little bit lately, playing like pogos and stuff, I've been tanking my rank, and then I start getting matched up against less legend players and then more diamond 5 players and such. And then so when I'm losing against them, it like makes sense that I'm falling back more than my wins get me. It's kind of, I guess, I don't know. I'm just sort of thinking that it works. I guess I try and like understand it in a similar way to the Battlegrounds MMR of like, is the wins versus the higher ranked players give you more versus, because when I was when I had hit Legend. I was hanging out around like 200, 300 for quite a while, just playing Odd Shaman, and I think my win rate wasn't anything too crazy. Just
It
around
was
like
it was 2-1. I remember that stream. You were like 10-4 or something. So no need to be humble keeping
I had
such a good win
one
rate.
good or a couple good days with it, but I think overall my win rate was still only in Legend about like 62%, and I had like maintained a rank around 300 or so, which was like pretty reasonable. But I definitely noticed that then I was playing against a lot more of like, high like 100, 200 Legend players as well.
I lost right before the show. I think I was rank 950 or something thereabouts, and I played a rank 1000 Legend player, and I lost. I lost. He was playing Priest. I was playing Quest Mage, and I lost. Probably is why I deserve to be that low. I lost 100 ranks for that game.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
I won the next game against another Legend player.
Get 20.
Comparable. I got 40. That's what I've been saying. I lose 100, I win 40. I crawled myself. I climbed back from like 1500. I think it's just a question of time. But, again, I don't care that I need to have a super high win rate, but I really want to understand what I need to do to maintain. I want the 11 stars. I mean, let's just be honest. I think everybody wants it. And understanding what is required, I think would enhance. I don't know, would enhance my enjoyment of the game, because then I would know it's attainable, what I would need to do to attain it, or it's not attainable and I could just focus on doing other things like portrait grinding or playing Pogo Rogue or whatever floats my boat, right?
I was just gonna say I hit Legend and switched over to playing The Last of Us Part 2. It's really good. But
yeah, I was just gonna say real quick about the so as far as like the 11 star stuff, I was definitely like trying to hold like a good rating for that at first, but I kind of I've kind of like resolved myself at this point to just not get 11 stars and be okay with that. And I guess like part of my reasoning for it is that way, like whatever deck I use to climb to Legend the next month, like it, or just that climb to Legend the next month, it actually has like some significance. Because if I'm just, climbing, I guess if I have an 11-star bonus, whatever deck I play to Legend doesn't matter. Like I could have had a 33% win rate or something and gotten there, if you will.
Yeah, I want a 33% win rate at Legend on day 2.
But I guess it's like, I guess for me, it's almost like, I feel like it's, you kind of have to play the whole month at, pretty, well, maybe not the whole month. You could kind of grind out some wins at the end, but you have to be sort of on top of your MMR for the whole month to get that 11 stars, to have like a couple days of easy climbing. And I would rather just like have, the whole month of easy experimenting in Legend and just memeing around and not worrying about my MMR and take the 10 stars. And then, have like a week or so of grinding through Diamond 5 to Legend. Is I guess how I'm looking at it.
And I would say that's an enlightened attitude to have, as I think the state of the meta is certainly hostile to consistent climbing. And I'm not so subtly segueing into that topic, but just want to make sure that everyone got their rants out with respect to the blue ladder system.
Yeah, I think so. Although there's a couple, I guess before we go down to the rabbit trail too much farther, I do want to say, talk about the harassment issue real quick. And I also want to give a super big shout out to the executive producer of our show, Shokunin. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show. He's been a supporter, kind of, I call him the patron saint of Wild, who has helped us keep the show going, sponsored a bunch of our giveaways and such. So just a big thank you. Thank you for believing and helping. It's really means a lot. So don't know if you're watching or not, but we really appreciate you. So yeah. And just to jump into the serious topic real quick before we have more fun. Over the past week, we've seen a lot of people, some in the Hearthstone community, and a lot just the gaming and streaming community in general, come out, particularly women, but a few men as well, kind of calling out toxic behavior, sexual harassment, sexual assault. And I think that there's just a big, scary, it's very eye-opening, and I kind of feel like, it's important to acknowledge. I don't feel like we're probably the right ones to talk about it, but it's very important to acknowledge and to listen and to learn. I guess my hot take on it is, victims have, I think like Blutrane put it, victims have nothing to gain by telling their stories and everything to lose. So believe women, there's no excuse for appalling behavior. It's interesting. I get stat emails about our show and kind of the audience of the show, and like, no surprise, but like our audience is 99% men. In fact, it might be 100% men at this point. But I think, what could we do as men to not be, toxic and have this? I don't want to talk on this too much because I'm hardly the expert, but I saw a post earlier this week from Gia D. That had some really good comments about what could, there was requests from men, who want to help out but don't know where to start. So she had a couple brief points, and I'll link to it in the show notes if you want to read it. But essentially she says, hey, teach each other to be better. Think twice about your jokes. Never stop listening and learning. And I think if you see this behavior, call it out. It's not acceptable. That's my 2 cents. And I'll get off my soapbox, but if you guys want to contribute, please feel free.
I mean, I think you said it best. I mean, it's not really for us three white men to opine on this subject, but I think the one thing that's bothered me, obviously outside of the stories that I've been reading, is the reaction that people have. Presumably guys that start, almost litigating it. This isn't a court. There isn't a burden of proof. There isn't, while there are some consequences that are now happening, and I'm not going to really talk to that, and people saying, well, you can't prove that this happened in a chat. I think that devalues the courage that the person has coming forward, telling their story, and while that might be a reaction you have, especially if the person who is accused is someone that you respect. I think at a certain point you have to understand that there isn't a burden of proof on coming forward as a victim, and I think that Gia sums it up better than I did by just listen, take stock in it, and try to be supportive to the people in your life as best you can.
Yeah, I really like those points that you had seen, Nate. Those are some great ones. Great place to start for sure. And yeah, definitely, again, like you were saying, Blutrane, three white dudes, like, it's this isn't what the conversation's about, but I think it's definitely important for, us as kind of the group sort of favored by society to recognize this conversation and to be discussing it, and be opening to listening and hearing the other sides of what's going on. And
yeah, well, and I think that we have a platform here. I'm not quite sure how big it is, but I feel like we would be doing a disservice by pretending this never happened, and so I don't want to do that. Yeah. Anyways, I guess we can move on. We're now in week 3 of the Fellfire Festival of Music and Vengeance. those of us who have been wanting to get golden Kelthras Sunstrider, or as Craig would call him, Carl Sunstrider in gold is finally available. And so I don't know how much you guys have really played the adventure yet. I usually love these, but I've been really hooked on playing The Last of Us right now. So I did the two first wings. My personal opinion, it is very fun. I am not a big fan of the rhyming, especially like Illidan's like yelling rhyming. It sounds like East Coast hip hop to me, and I don't like that very much.
All right, so I have a theory why this solo content is so bad. Now, I'm gonna put a disclaimer in front of this saying, free content, beggars can't be choosy, free packs. Okay, we got that out of the way. I think that originally this solo adventure was going to be packaged up the way the Descent of Dragons adventure was, with cards. Now, as everyone probably knows, a new class was introduced to the game called Demon Hunter that has had 3 nerfs, or 3 waves of nerfs, and most of the cards of consequence that were introduced to this class changed somewhat. I think that the cards that were going to be released as part of this adventure were predominantly Demon Hunter, and they didn't want to break the game again. So they just took the cards out, released the solo content for free, and are doing their best to try and rework the cards before the next release. And this is also why I believe they were so quiet about this in the lead up, because probably they were hoping to fix the cards and kind of get it released, but it didn't quite work out. I also think that Shaman, which we already talked about, which is a very hot topic in Standard apparently as well, might have made them reconsider the release of the Shaman cards, lest they would revisit the infamous now silence your own minion, draw a card fiasco they had back in the day with Priest. I don't remember the name of that card, but if you all remember, that was Purify. Priest was in a bad spot, and they released Purify, and I remember the community just erupted. So it's just my hypothesis. I could be way off the mark, but Nate, you streamed the adventure. I watched you do it. I was nodding off like it was bad. So I have not gotten golden Kael'thas yet. I don't know if I ever will at this point, as much as I want them.
To be fair, it was like 11 p.m. or midnight or something, but I'm sure it didn't help.
Time for sleep.
Details.
I played a bit of the adventure. I just played the first wing, and that part was nice enough. You know, I kind of liked the little story they were trying to tell, though. Yeah, I did think the rhyming was a little heavy-handed. And then I started just this week playing a bit of the challenges, and I quite enjoyed those. Those you bring your own deck to them, although you can't use wild decks, which, like, it makes you think that you can because it doesn't X them out at first.
Wait, hang on a second. You cannot use wild decks.
Yo, you hadn't heard that yet?
No, I have just avoided the whole thing completely. So what is up with that?
I mean, I guess they wanted to make it a little like not like quite as ridiculous to be having to stand up to the combos of wild, but I don't know.
But the challenges are PvE, right?
Yeah. Oh, and the weirdest thing is that I'm pretty sure they, like, some of the decks use wild cards, like, of the opponents use wild cards in them. I'm not positive about that, but I feel like I saw a Despicable Dreadlord in one of them, and I was like, hold up.
You know what? I'm glad you guys brought it up. I wasn't going to, but I think, yeah. And the crazy thing is, I think this is, I could be wrong, but I think that this is the first solo content where we have not been able to use wild cards. And it seems, I don't know. I watched Ben, I think it's Ben Hearthstone or something like that on Twitter. Ben has a pretty awesome Instagram channel, and he posts pretty good infographics and stuff all the time. But he was saying that he's a big time collector. He got his 1K Illidan real early on, but he was saying that he traditionally loves solo content and was able to kind of breeze through it with the what do you call the deck complete, when you start a deck and you let Battle.net complete the deck for you, and he used the the Blizzard build it yourself priest deck and kind of breeze through it. So we'll see. I haven't quite got there yet. I'll probably do it this weekend. I think the flavor of it is really fun, and I enjoy that. And you know what? I do have to say, props to Hearthstone for giving us free stuff. You know what? I think that there's always going to be complaints about lots of things. The world is kind of crappy right now, and if nothing else, we got some free Hearthstone cards, and so free solo content, free golden Carl Sunstrider, some free packs and stuff. So I'm appreciative. I'll say that much.
And Kael'thas is Carl. Kael'thas is a pretty cool character in the WoW universe. I play this game called Heroes of the Storm. It's still a real game, so you can make fun of me later for that. I play quite a bit of Kael'thas in that game, but I don't know if I'm going to get him in gold. We'll see.
Do you know any of the lore? That's what I miss about having Velen's Chosen around, is that Lore Master Eve would always talk about the lore of these characters. And I know virtually nothing about it. Aside from...
I don't know a lot about Kael'thas. I only dabbled in WoW in the last couple of years, so I think that I'm not even going to bother. I think I'll leave. We'll
let it go then.
Google.
All right.
Yeah, he's a fire mage that is very arrogant. He was kind of featured in the second WoW expansion, I think. Anyways, look, I'm not upset about the content, although I'd be lying if I'm disappointed. Just because the last solo adventure after the Galakrond's Awakening adventure, I believe it was called, the one after Descent of Dragons, was so awesome. And, that's all. But I think that if the cards that I really truly believe were going to be released with this adventure got delayed because they didn't want to break the game further or create Purify 2.0, then I think that it probably was the right decision, and we'll applaud it.
Yeah, and one, I think it's important to remember, we've heard the devs say many times that they're always 2 expansions ahead of us, and so like you said, I'm sure that there are plans for this, and I think even watching some of the interviews, that this stuff tends to change quite frequently. It could change last minute. That's kind of the beauty of a digital card game, is they can push a hot fix in the game and change something like right away. Like there's no print run or anything, or once they print a card, it's very easy to change, as opposed to Magic or something. If a card gets banned, it's it's already printed. What can you do? So anyways, hey, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this. This is my favorite comment that I saw all week. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dane. I hope you are. But
yes.
My God, I love this. It made me laugh so hard. We've been talking about this for a long time. But hey, wait, what happened to the Wild Open of 2020? And our buddy asked for it. It became the Wild Closed of 2020.
Oh gosh.
Oh God, I love it. I laughed so hard. Anyways, so moving right along, one of the things that we're going to talk about the state of the meta a little bit, and I wanted to share something that I had put together over the past week. Blutrane sent me this screenshot of this. We're talking about post Twin Slice nerf, if you will, or rework, as Hat would say. And if you look at the popularity and win rate of Demon Hunter, like, it's up again. And so just in 1 week, I took a look at the different decks that people had taken to Legend using Odd Demon Hunter. And so all of these decks have 2 copies of Twin Slice in it. It's just very strong, especially if you can pair it with a weapon. It's you're looking at 10 plus damage from hand, especially if you've got a weapon that can attack multiple times per turn. I mean, it's just pretty nasty. That being said, I still think it's not the premier aggro deck, but
Well, it's interesting. In full disclosure, the list that Ghosty took to rank 1 legend is Corbett's. I believe it was the same list card for cards. So, I mean,
I'm gonna say that's
obviously.
probably why he's not on. There was a couple people that had used someone else's deck and hit, and that's why I think Corbett. I think like you said, Ghosty used Corbett's list, and
So if you put the infograph back from HS Replay, I think it's interesting. The thing about HS Replay and Wild is that they don't get a lot of data, but I think that there's an interesting story to be told on here. So let's put popularity aside. For win rate, while I think maybe the top 4 are misordered somewhat, or maybe it's not, I think that that's about in line with my experience. Popularity I find interesting. I mean, Demon Hunter's new, and so you're probably going to see a lot of representation on it, on the lower side of the ladder. Warlock really surprises me, being more popular than Priest and Warrior. But I think that if you look at the 3 meta snapshots out there, there's probably more, but the 3 that I follow most closely, Wildside, Vicious Syndicate, and Tempo Storm, I think they got it about right. I think Tempo Storm actually has been really nailing them recently in line with my experience, and I think that the meta, frustratingly, is very rock, paper, scissors. Got Pirate Warrior, Reno Priest, Quest Mage. Demon Hunter is probably a more consistent deck than Pirate Warrior, but the problem is that Pirate Warrior just obliterates Quest Mage. And despite the fact that it's fallen off a little bit, it is still an incredibly busted deck that performs exceptionally well and is defining this meta. Cream Puff he fell way into the dumpster, I think like even lower than me, which if you're watching Cream Puff, shaking my head here, he took it from like 1500. He couldn't find a deck that worked for him. Just started rocking Quest Mage, 1500 back up to like 200. Jack Harris didn't quite go as low, but he was in the 400 or 500s, took it back up to double digits, and the deck still wins games. And so the only deck that reliably counters it is Pirate Warrior. Odd Demon Hunter, while it will probably be favored, it tends to go taller rather than wide. And so, a couple of freeze effects and you can steal games off of it, whereas a couple of freeze effects doesn't quite work as well against Pirate Warrior. And so if I was going to rock an aggro deck, I probably, for that reason alone, would kind of favor Pirate Warrior more than Odd Demon Hunter. But obviously, if people are hitting rank 1 with it, on the 25th of the month, then maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But I really think that those are the top 3 decks. And I think that, and I should probably take my own advice, no matter what you play, you're going to queue into matchups that you're pretty much going to lose. And that's very frustrating, and you have to just power through it, whether you're playing Priest, Pirate Warrior, Quest Mage, or anything else. There's nothing that really has an even matchup spread that's really viable right now if you're looking to climb. So, it's really about picking something that you enjoy playing, sticking with it, and just grinding it out. It's a real grind.
Yeah, well, and I think that you can hit Legend with a tier 3 deck if you pilot it correctly. I don't know. I mean, I love seeing, like, okay, so Gold Daniel, right, he hit Legend, I think, over the past week or so with Malygos Warlock, which is pretty awesome. Last week we had Taylor Eve on the show. She hit Legend with Reno Dragon N'Zoth Druid. Like, what is that? I love that. So that makes my soul happy to see people hitting with off meta decks. And so your Odd Shaman is very spicy. Like I'm excited for things like that, and I think, you know, I can take Pirate Warrior and jam it to Legend. Like it's really fun, but I don't know. It's fun to see, you know, something different. And for me personally, like I don't really enjoy playing aggro all that much. I'm a big fan of combo decks and of like kind of like mid range is really my favorite style. Kind of tempo, board centric decks are really what I enjoy.
I was gonna say it's kind of interesting, like, you know, how there's been so much talk about like the rock paper scissors meta, and you know, between those top three decks of Reno, Priest, Quest Mage, and Pirate Warrior, I would say that that's certainly the case. But I think it's had like a sort of interesting effect, like overall on the meta, to sort of just make it like half and half in a way of just either you have to be really fast aggro or a really good like combo control sort of thing. Or I mean, you can kind of take a third route of like combo disruption and like slow, yeah, I guess like slow disruption control, which is probably what I would say the Reno Mill Druid fits in with Skulking Geist. But I guess it basically just leaves no room for mid-range in a way, because you know, you either with mid-range you're either going to get like, you might be able to outlast some of the aggro decks, although that's like going to be hit or miss, but then it's like, you know, it's going to be tough for a mid-range deck to put on the pressure to you know, beat a Quest Mage before they go off, or a Reno Priest before they can really like combo you down as well, or stabilize with all their healing and such. Though not impossible, but
True.
Yeah, I dumpstered myself trying to play even Shaman as a Pirate Warrior counter, and it just didn't. I know some folks have been having success, although to your comment, Nate, I mean, there are a bunch of players that, you know, you make them play with an autofill deck and they'll succeed with it. Dewin's always sharing his ideas with me, and I always remind him that, you know, like you have success with it because you're doing, and you know, I could give you an autofill and you'd have a comparable win rate. For those of us, I speak for myself, who aren't as talented. It is tricky to navigate, and I think that it kind of goes back to what I was saying, that I would be less concerned about winning games, which really shouldn't be the goal. I mean, obviously, just enjoying oneself should be the goal. I think that I would probably be a little bit more open to experiment, as I have traditionally, if I knew what the criteria was for hitting those rank benchmarks. Interestingly enough, though, your deck 3E was one that I didn't care. It inspired me to actually to experiment with it a little bit, and maybe as a segue, we can talk a little bit about your deck.
I just as a side note, I saw it when you posted it, or Neon posted it. I don't know, a couple weeks ago or whatever, and I started playing it, and I was talking with Blutrane about it, and I played a few games on it against the Innkeeper just to kind of get like, what is this? What am I playing? What am I looking for? And kind of got the hang of it a little bit, and then I switched over to Ladder, and my first game was against some guy playing Reno Dragon Priest, and I won. I won on turn 5, turn 6 by doing two, I don't know, fireballs, whatever it's called. What's it called?
Lava burst.
Lava burst. I did two lava bursts to face for lethal with a bunch of spell totems on board. Got a instant friend request and spammed with the most racial slur, most vile comment I have ever seen in my entire life. And usually, like, I get the rage ads, and they're entertaining, and I post them on Twitter and laugh at them. And this one was so just freaking vile. I was trying to get this person banned over it. It was
no one
like,
wants.
Whoa.
I saw your tweet about that. I didn't realize that was playing the Odd Shaman.
That's your fault. Yes,
I
that
mean-
was so anyways,
Guy thought he had a free lunch and got dunked on, and
Yeah.
that's how you
revealed his
know
true colors.
that's how you know the deck is good. And one of the other things that I love about it is you do a double take. I mean, I saw in the chat, Daniel's like, wait. Did you say Odd Shaman? Like, that is the wrong. It's supposed to be even Shaman, right? And so people don't know how to play against it or what they're looking at. It's a head scratcher. I mean, it was kind of the same when people started playing that big Shaman last month, where like, wait a minute, it felt like Big Priest. Like the first 5 turns you do nothing, and then you win. And but at first when I was seeing this deck, people kind of scratch their head and what is this? What am I looking at? They don't know how to play around it, and that's what I like about it.
There have been a few successes, hand quotes, of Odd Shaman that's come out of, I guess, the Chinese or Asian servers, and I'd look at the lists and I'd be like, oh, well, that looks cool. But when I saw 3E's list, it clicked. It was the first one that made sense to me as like, oh, there's something here. And really, I think what it does, and I'd be really interested to get your take, is it marries the aggro shaman game plan that typically would not be even or odd and would run things like Spirit of the Frog, but because of the hero power, gives it a little bit more board presence against aggro, just something that aggro shaman as an archetype suffers through. But against control decks that are a little bit more passive, you can fill the board up with spell damage totems and just nuke them. And that flexibility really is kind of the reason why one might consider this, in my opinion, over aggro shaman. And clearly you've had, I think, real legitimate success with it. I think that taking it to legend on a 10-star modifier and hanging in there for a good couple weeks in the high 200s, that's not nothing, and very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly was more than pleased with my success with the deck. I started. I mean, I guess I started trying to make Odd Shaman a thing as soon as Baku came out in the Witchwood. But I never quite got it to work in standard, or at least I never quite played enough with it in standard to really refine the list. And I put it down for a long time. Would just throw together a list every now and then to sort of, I don't know, see what I could do. But then last month in May, I actually had decided to really give Odd Shaman another shot because I kind of wanted to just try making some YouTube videos. And I thought that Odd Shaman would be a just great one for it because, I mean, it is such a kind of eye catcher. It's, the wrong half of the mana costs, if you will. But I felt like that it had received a lot of good tools lately, and so that it had a lot of promise. And yeah, I mean, I really do find the upgraded Shaman hero power really interesting, and I've always kind of been trying to find some way to show that there really is potential there if you can leverage it in the right way.
So I think that there are a lot of really good and interesting choices in here. So I think maybe I would start with the ones that jump up. So full disclosure, 3E has a stream that you should all check out. And, kind of new edits, so not a lot of folks in there. The first question is, why not Watcher? Why not the 5/6 for 3 mana? And I think that's probably gotten to the point where you roll your eyes when asked that. But why not the 5/6 for 3 mana? I mean, it's 5/6 for 3 mana. Stats.
I know. It's really, it's definitely been the question that's been asked the most to me, and it was really hard passing up on that just great pile of stats for such a low cost. And I did try it. I mean, again, when I went through May, like I did a lot of iterations of this deck, and I certainly gave Arcane Watcher its shot. The reason I didn't end up playing it is because I felt like it can just make your future turns a little bit too restricted almost. Which, I mean, yes, there's like overload cards in here that do that as well. But with Arcane Watcher, I found it like just not quite the payoff that I needed. Like, I mean, sometimes, just the big body on its own would just get removed pretty easily by like one removal spell. And I guess also the other big reason that didn't include it in the deck is because it doesn't like do anything the turn you play it. It's just not a great like top deck in a lot of cases. Like when you're like looking for lethal, if you will.
Mhm.
And while there's, like plenty of the one drops like Tunnel Trog and Surging Tempest that don't do anything when you top deck them that turn, like, they're literally the best thing to have at the first few turns of the game. So I would certainly warrant that. And yeah, I just felt like the 3 drops that I had were generally more impactful than the Arcane Watcher.
Yeah. Hey,
I agree. Sorry, Nate. Yeah.
Sorry, let me interrupt you guys for 2 seconds. Just, I know we're trying to focus kind of on the video shows, but for those folks who are listening on the podcast, I'm gonna read through the deck list real quick, and we'll post the code with the show notes so that you guys have it. But just to give a little bit of, I think a lot of the majority of our listeners like listen to the audio only version. I highly recommend watch the video. There's graphics and stuff. It's very cool. I say that because I made it. but anyways, so here's the list. Two copies of Earth Shock, 2 Lightning Bolts, 2 Sludge Slurpers, 2 copies of Storm's Wrath, 2 copies of Surging Tempest, 2 copies of Totemic Smash, 2 copies of Tunnel Trog, which is one of my favorite cards, 2 copies of Voltaic Burst, 2 copies of Flame Tongue Totem, Lady Vosh, the legendary, 2 copies of Lava Burst, 2 copies of Manatide Totem, 2 copies of Marsh Spawn, which I had never played before, 2 copies of Serpent Shrine Portal, 2 copies of Totemic Reflection, and of course Baku, the Moon Eater. So yes, there we go. Carry on.
I appreciate the call out. It's easy to forget.
It's easy to forget, right?
And, yeah. But I think what I was going to say is when you look at the 3 drops, they're all more impactful. The 3 drop that would be suspect for the Watcher would be the Flame Tongue Totem. But I think the reason why this deck is successful is because it's super aggressive. I mean, beyond Baku, they're all 3 drops and 1 drops. So you have a very cheap mana curve. The deck goes really wide, which means that it matches pretty well into Quest Mage, obviously, but also into Pirate Warrior. It's hard for them to deal with it. I mean, you drop Flame Tongue and you put a Totemic Reflection on it, and you have a few healing totems that you've smashed out with your hero power. That's a tricky board to deal with. So it really, the Watcher almost is like the equivalent of going tall, but really that's anti-synergistic with this deck's game plan, which is to swarm the board. And if you don't win by gripping the board, just nuke them with all the burn cards. And so I think that this is why this really stood out to me, is because it's really well thought out and it really works. Marsh Spawn, especially in a deck that's so aggressively statted, is effectively card draw. It very seldomly isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So with Marsh Spawn, Manatide, and the Totemic Reflection for a Shaman deck, you've got pretty good card draw in here as well for that refill. So I'm a huge fan. I've been trying to get aggressive Shaman decks to work that weren't even for some time, and you sir have succeeded, and this is a really fun list that is also, it wins enough to be viable and fun.
Yeah, and I think for those people who aren't familiar, and again, this is something that I'll post in the show notes, but 3E made a really good YouTube video that goes through this deck and explains it in depth. I've watched it prior to the show when I was trying to learn how to play this, and it's really well done. I like the congrats on the editing, by the way. That is much, you put much more effort into it than I do on editing this show. So
yeah, I kind of wonder if it was worth it. I mean, I was very happy with the outcome, but I definitely, did a bit of a departure from the usual Hearthstone style of like, a couple games with just talking over it. So I don't know if all the time on that editing was as worth, but it looks fun. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was a great video. I mean,
it's wonderful to hear.
I recognize how time consuming it is, but I think that I hope that this nets it more exposure, because I think that if someone is looking to pick this up, that's going to be eminently more helpful than just watching you jam 5 games of it without all that context, especially since this is so far outside of the norm in terms of what one would do with a shaman deck, which is probably, I mean, no excuse, and I'm not excusing it, but it explains why that guy raged so hard. I mean, when you were streaming 3E and we were, I don't want to say co-oping, I was just kind of sitting there in the Discord with you, almost everyone without a fail, the game would start and they would emote right away, because they just they can't believe that Baku came out, and then you see like the hero power get highlighted, because they're like, what does it do?
Every time. I love seeing that. And I mean, honestly, I've definitely I've gotten a good few friend requests for this deck, and thankfully they've all been just like people being really positive, like, hey, can I get the list? And I'm always really happy to see that. But sometimes people just, when they see something that they just did not expect at all, and they, especially if they're like not really one to think about making their own decks, and they think that anything that isn't top meta is trash, then that can bring out a special kind of rage, which I'm a fan of, to at least be able to.
Yeah. Hey, one thing that I wanted to ask you about, I mean, I feel like it was a good substitution, but I know in your original list, it looks like you pulled out Lightning Storm and subbed in Lady Vosh. And I think that was something that you and Blutrane had talked about over the past week or so, or whenever that was.
Yeah, so Blutrane actually was the one who suggested the Lady Vosh swap. And I had tried Lady Vosh before, along with a couple other legendaries of Electro Storm Surge, and Zentimo actually was in the version of my deck that I climbed to Legend with in May. But so I did play the Lightning Storm in the deck up to Legend. And I wanted that because I was running into a good bit of Pirate Warrior and Demon Hunter, just a reasonable amount of aggro, and I wanted some kind of like board clear for it. But I don't know, when I got into Legend, I started playing against more like priests and mages particularly. But Lady Vosh works much better in the control matchups there. Like Lightning Storm, it doesn't really, you're not really too concerned about clearing their boards. So having a minion that can just be played out on curve is really nice. And that's why I did prefer Lady Vosh over like the other 2 legendaries, is that she just had a lot better stats to just drop on turn 3.
The spell damage doesn't hurt either.
The spell damage is definitely really nice. But then, that prime version of her, like I honestly have probably only drawn her about like 2 or 3 times. Played her even less. But it's just such a nice like kind of insurance policy or potential top deck to have in the deck. Like it makes the potential to like win some of those games that like would otherwise be out of reach for you get there. And so having that like extra, I don't know, like 10% to again like win some other unwinnable games is really nice. And again, like she's totally fine. It's just an on-curve minion with spell damage that's aggressively statted. I like that. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. This deck is really fun. It's been a blast to play, and I don't really know much what else to say about it. I think for those people who are listening, one of the new things that we started doing with this show was to Once the show is over, we'll take a quick break, but on stream, we'll record for YouTube some co-op gameplay of this deck on ladder to kind of go through the mulligans and turn by turn playthroughs and discussion on why we did what we did. So hopefully that little bit will help. But this is really, really fun and really spicy. So I love it.
I guess
one thing that we yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. I guess I was just gonna say, you kind of mentioned about how like the curve topped out at 3, and that was certainly like an interesting deck building decision that I made. But I guess like one thing that I've kind of found is that you can almost think that the curve, it isn't quite as low as it looks, in part because of all the overload. Some of those like 1 mana cards, they use 2 mana, so it's like you're not going to dump your hand quite as fast as you might would with other decks that have the same sort of totally all-in stuff. And then I guess that's the main point I was going to bring up there.
It's a good one. I mean, we were talking about that before, the class identity. I mean, get value now, pay later means that you're not going to want to have dead turns. And by having a low curve, you're at least guaranteeing that you can still bolt that threat or buff the board or silence the minion with the 1-drops. We talked about this, but I feel that there's, this deck is kind of on the fringe of potentially becoming, if not meta, then maybe solid tier 3, tier 2. If we look at the support that this deck archetype received just in the last expansion, it's pretty remarkable. Serpentine Portal, Marsh Spawn, Totemic Reflection.
I think Totemic
those are the 3 cards.
My favorite new card.
I mean, Marsh Spawn is just, it's card advantage. It's solid stats. The deck needs the reload because it dumps hand. But yeah, I mean, Totemic Reflection on a Mana Tide or a Flame Tongue is just that wins games on the spot.
Yeah.
And I mean, if it gets more support in the form of odd costed cards, I mean, this could become a real viable archetype. And Blizzard has obviously been reluctant to make strong, even statted cards, with the exception of Totemic Surge, because I mean, well, they printed Totemic Surge, and then even Shaman went from an overload build to a totem build overnight.
Right. That's true.
So, if they're going to really do this revamp of Shaman, which I hope they do, being that it's my favorite class, I think a lot of the cards could be odd costed for that reason. I mean, despite what people say, I genuinely think that they do. Maybe they don't keep Wild in the forefront of their mind, but in the back of their mind, they do. I think that Twin Slice is a great example of where they kind of found a win-win, where they buffed it in Wild and nerfed it in Standard. I assume maybe it was a buff in Standard too. I don't play enough to know, but
yeah. Well, and Pendragon in the chat had a really good point that this deck is really good for free-to-play players. Because I mean, really, what do you need? You need Baku. Is you could make the deck work with only 1 legend, and if you want to add Lady Vosh, then great. But it sounds like like we talked about earlier, there's a couple viable substitutions, and the deck overall is cheap. Something that I hadn't really considered. I typically am kind of a Hearthstone whale, so
yeah, I never thought of that either. I think it's a good point.
I actually had seen that there was a budget like tournament thing that I don't know if there was one going on or some that people were talking about, and it looked like the entry cost or the entry like requirement for Dust for a deck was, they were thinking like around like 3,200, and this deck with the Lightning Storm instead of Lady Vosh, I think is 3,260 in Dust. So yeah, just like one swap, and I guess it'd officially be a budget deck.
Hey, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, one thing
definitely. Oh, go on.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just gonna say one of the other things that I really like about this is I almost view Marshspawn as like a mini Zephyrs, because you get. I mean, well, there's so many options, right? Do you need burn? Do you need card draw? Do you need do you need a buff? There's the shaman spells are kind of all over the place, and like every once in a while you're gonna get a dud, but there's a pretty good chance that you I mean, I don't know, there were times that I definitely pulled Lava Burst off of it, and well, that's pretty nice. I mean, so if you need it, I've enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Blutrane, you had kind of mentioned before when we were first like discussing the Lightning Storm swap for Lady Vosh. It's like, you can just discover AoE off of Marsh Spawn and lackeys from Sludge Slurper. So it's like you can kind of get by without it. So the little mini Zephyrs references.
That's funny, but
I mean, depending on what gets released in the future, I think what I'd like to see this deck get more of is more refill. And if you can sub some of the overload cards out for non-overload, that also would be nice as well. Although, looking at the 1-drops, you kind of hard to beat Lightning Bolt, Sludge Surfer, Tunnel Trog. So maybe the deck doesn't change a whole lot. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves. I really do believe that this is a fun off-meta archetype that really has a lot of potential, and obviously has seen some success. So if you are interested in trying out an off-meta shaman deck, sorry guys, big shaman doesn't count.
It's definitely meta now.
I would definitely recommend giving this a shot, especially if you're an aggro shaman fanatic. This definitely has that same kind of vibe. So
yeah. Well, very cool. I guess it is about that time to start wrapping up a little bit. One of the things that we've been doing on the show is giving a shout out to folks who have hit Wild Legend for the first time. And I hadn't seen much this week until it was either yesterday or today. I saw a couple. So if you're listening and this happens to you, please shout us out or whatever, so that we can congratulate you. But So big shout out to Watts number 1, who hit first time legend with looks like Odd Demon Hunter. So very, very cool. Congratulations. But these next two, you guys are gonna laugh. I almost interjected earlier, Blutrane, because they took Duin's Reno Spiteful Hunter. So here, congrats to Nikki. It looks like at Faysound on Twitter. Just hit Legend and Wild for the first time with Duin, Spiteful Hunter. Feels really solid. And Spiteful and Archivist in Hunter is always super fun. So here's one, okay, but not just one. Here is number 2 with the same deck list. So John Sukolos, congratulations. He says, thanks so much for the list. He's talking to Duin. Thanks so much for the list. I just hit Wild Legend for the first time using this revised list. I was doing well before the changes, but adding in Rexar and Zixar helped a lot. Ironically, my final boss was Pirate Warrior, and I had Coda with Lifesteal to seal the game. So just goes to show you, okay, that you can hit Legend with anything, including Spiteful Hunter. And I love it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's fun. Oh, and one other thing, and we saved it for the end of the show, of course, so that all you people who have entered into our contest had to listen to us talk for an hour and a half before we did the giveaway. So we're giving away 2 copies of the this new Demon Hunter bundle. So we were going to give away one, and thankfully our good friend Shokunin sponsored a giveaway of a second. So I'm going to plop this on the screen. And here are all the people that entered. So I've got them all loaded up into this list here. These are folks who had reached out to us per our instructions on last week's show, and put them into the randomizer picker wheel. And so doing this live on the show gets me out of any any sort of favoritism claims. So here we go.
Wait,
And
has that happened in the past?
No, but but what happens is but for real, the Wild community is a smaller community, especially this show and the friends of our show. And so what happens is the pool sometimes of entry are there's a bunch of friends of ours essentially. But that being said, like I would rather give away a bundle of stuff to someone who actually listens to our show than some random person from the internet who retweeted our tweet. And so maybe that's a little bit selfish, but it is what it is. Anyways, without further ado, I am going to spin the wheel. I'm 99% sure that this thing makes sound, and you guys probably won't hear it, but it'll be on the recording for sure. So here we go.
Some high-end special effects.
All right, Paul Melkild is the first winner. So very cool. Congratulations. That's awesome. I will reach out to you on Twitter and get you hooked up with your thing. And let's do one more, our second one, and that should have taken him off the list. I will uncheck him here. Okay. So he is now removed. You cannot win twice. But here we go. One more.
I love this wheel. This is so awesome.
It's beautiful, right? All right, there we go. All right, winner number 2 is Volkai. So congratulations, you guys. And if for whatever reason we're not able to touch base with these folks, then then I'll figure out a different way of doing things. But anyways, congratulations. Happy to be able to do this, and thanks again to Shokunin for sponsoring one of the giveaways. We really appreciate that. So cool. I'll make this stuff go away. It feels like the price is right. Yeah, it does.
It's much better than just the basic random picks from whatever
random number generator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, I like
there's some there's a little bit of what's the word? Anticipation.
It's got a little more panache than just a number, right?
Hey, and it makes cute noises.
Well,
All right.
I'm gonna have to watch the VOD for that.
Oh yes. Chat loves the wheel. So the wheel needs to be a new weekly segment. We could do that. All right. Well, let's I guess sign off of the main show, and then for those people who want to stick around, we're going to do some co-op games of this Odd Shaman deck. So, Blutrane, where can people? Well, I guess I'm not used to doing this. Usually, Craig does this part. I guess I will go first, and then leave it to you guys, and then talk about. Let me start over. My name is Nate Wolf. I am happy to be hosting the show. I'm sad to have Craig gone, but I love doing the show, and I love the Wild community, and it's good to be here. So if you are interested in following me, I'm primarily active on Twitter. You can follow me at NateWolfTCG. It's NateWolfeTCG. More importantly, you can find the show. I've been in the process of building a website for a long time, and one of these days I'll finally finish it. I'm motivated because I'm paying for it each month, but haven't released it yet. But very soon, TM. But anyways, in the meantime, you can follow the show at Born to Be Wild HS on Twitter. All of our content, including the show, co-op gameplay, our parody songs, and everything else can be found on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Born to Be Wild podcast. If you go to our Twitter, all of our other places are there as our pinned tweet. So if you're so inclined to donate to the show, that's patreon.com/Born to Be Wild HS. You can email the show at borntobewildhs@gmail.com. And there is a Discord channel that we have, and it's a lot of fun there. And you're welcome to join, and the link is in the pinned tweet as well. It will all be on the website soon, and then I won't have to say all this each week. Anyways, Blutrane, I'll pass it over to you. Where can people find you?
Twitter's probably the best place. Same at Blutrane. I'm semi-active there. So feel free to message me or at me if you want to get in touch. And thank you so much for having me be your first guest host. I know it's under bittersweet circumstances, but I really appreciate having the opportunity to spend some time with you guys. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's really fun. I'm happy to have you, and agreed. You know, it's a little sad not having Craig here, but the show must go on, and it's a lot of fun having you, and we'll definitely have to do it again sometime. For the folks wondering, I'm not quite sure what the ultimate format of the show will be in terms of guest hosts. I will say that next week I am taking the week off. My parents are going to be visiting, and my kid brother are going to be visiting from out of state. And there's the holiday, and so it's easier to take a day off than it is to try to record on a holiday and try to push everything around and record midweek. So we're going to have 1 week off, and then when we come back, the next episode, we will have guest host Hydralisk. Was another Canadian, coincidentally, and our special guest.
Canadian. Hopefully Craig's not in chat.
Yes, I will have another token Canadian on the show, and our special guest will be Mike Lowe next episode. So I'm very excited for that. Good friends. Anyways, 3E, where can people find you?
So yeah, you can find me on Twitter, 3E_Anura, and you can find me on Twitch under the same username. Also on YouTube, if you're trying to like reach out, probably Twitter is the best way. I'll check it. Maybe not like terribly regularly, but at least like every other day or so. I try and stream about every other day as well, mostly Hearthstone. But I like to stream other games as well when I'm feeling them. Other usually like strategy games, Magic, and some RPGs like Dark Souls and Monster Hunter. But yeah, it was wonderful coming on. Really happy to get just more involved in the community. It's something I've been kind of trying to do a little bit more now. And it's really been a wonderful dive. It's been really great to be here and to hang out with y'all. And
very cool.
Thanks again.
Oh, absolutely. And as trying to keep with tradition, a couple of things that we have always done on the show, we will do our best to continue. I can't promise that I will make songs as good as Craig, but I will rope him in whenever I can, and we'll do what we can. So a big shout out to Wildcard for making the song at the end of this week's show. I had the privilege of helping to edit it, but he wrote it and performed it, and so that's fun. And one other tradition that couldn't quite get rid of.
And now, unrelated advice with Nate Wolf.
Blutrane, I have to ask you some advice here. So, completely unrelated advice. My parents and my kid brother are coming to town from out of state to visit me later on this coming week. And due to this COVID pandemic, we can't go out and do stuff. So I'm going to be stuck in my house with them for a week. What would you do to keep them occupied?
Well, I think that one, for the children, make a game out of hand washing, because that's really important. Just put it out there. Try to gamify it. I'm serious. And group activity for everyone. I like board games. I think that's a good way to bring everyone together. It tends to, you got to be careful what board game. Some board games bring out the evil. Don't let them play Settlers of Catan. I've seen relationships end over Settlers. I think a board game's a fun thing, but just because you're all sharing the pieces and stuff, hand washing's always important. So try to make a game of that too.
Very good. What about you, 3E? What should I do to keep them busy?
Ooh, I was gonna say, try and teach them Hearthstone, but
Oh,
that can be a lost cause. So
Oh.
I don't know. I think the hand washing game advice is like top tier. The only one that could really beat that. So I don't know. Just have some. I always like to try and do like little art sessions and stuff when I'm stuck inside and trying to connect with people. I don't know if you're into that, but hey, just break out some crayons or whatnot and start doodling.
There you go. Wiser words were never spoken. And you heard that on Born to be Wild.